Chair, thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a real honor for me to present to you this afternoon. Who did the best choice, to stay at the CSIR or to go to Denel? I think that we're one big family. And the more we realize that and more we can work together, the better it will be for us as an industry. And I hope that I will be able to touch on some of those elements during the presentation. Now, in terms of growth and transformation, we are standing at the crossroads in South Africa. There is no doubt that after 20 years of democracy, this pace of transformation within the defense industry has not been to our satisfaction. It's clearly something that we need to work on, something that we need to have a principled vision to achieve. And so for us to find ways to accelerate the pace of transformation is very important. But on the other side of the coin, there's no doubt that growth is an intrinsic part of what sustains the industry. And so the ability for this industry to work together, to collaborate, and to ensure that we optimize our opportunities with regards to new technologies and the export market is lying at the heart of what I want to present to you this afternoon. And so those are the two driving forces that I want to address. And what I've done, Chair, I've taken 3 principles around which I would like to present it to you. The first one is that there must be a drive towards growing your revenue. And most probably today that is exports. The second one is that you have to have a principled decision to put transformation as part of your policy objectives. And the third one is that there need to be strategic alignment between us as an industry in order to optimize what we can achieve in the market. So on top of these 3 principles, I will elaborate a bit in terms of our mandate and so forth. So let me get into the presentation. What's the mandate for Denel? This is the first principle. Business focus to drive export, to drive growth, and to do transformation as part of your policy objectives. So Denel exists for 3 fundamental reasons. The first one is to support the industrial, sovereign, and strategic requirement of the National Defence Force. There are specific technologies, there are specific products that they need, and Denel is mandated to ensure that these remain in place, that they are rejuvenated and made available as required by the Defence Cluster. The second thing is that we are looking at growth in our industry. It's important that Denel understand that without the local industry, it will not be able to sustain its profits. And so rejuvenating the industry, making use of the industry, and making sure that we deepen the knowledge base, deepen the industrial base of our industry, is the second pillar of the mandate. And then lastly, but very vitally, we have a socio-economic imperative. Firstly, we need to make sure that we develop jobs, that we develop skills, that we are able to transform our industry, that we do preferential procurement, CSIR, that we're looking after the environment. And those 3 legs of Denel's mandate is seen in its application and its results of the last few years. Can we go there just briefly? Firstly, the national policy framework is clear. This country got a compelling vision that is based around its citizens, that's based around prosperity and growth for everybody that lives in this country. And so nobody can fault that vision. Nobody can fault that framework. The question is, what are we doing? Are we buying into this? Are we showing leadership? Or are we trying to be compliant? Now, like any difficult problem in life, you have to buy in. Your values must be one of wanting to make it work, not compliant. And we need to ask ourselves, what can we do to engender that type of culture throughout the industry? And already a lot has been achieved. It's not like we've been standing still, but we can do quite a bit more. And for that to take place means leadership. It means articulation of what it is that we as a nation want to have in our industry. And to be clear, Denel has moved from just 3 billion rands to over 8 billion rands in the last 4 years revenue. So huge growth in its revenue. And that's creating jobs. 75% plus of that work is repatriated back to South Africa, done by Denel and its supply chain in South Africa. And so the reason for that clearly is that we do not have a strong local demand currently. the defense budget is under pressure. Government has to prioritize wherever it is required, and currently that is not going to defense. And sitting with a defense budget of around about 1% of GDP is very, very low in international terms. The norm being 2 to 2.5%. And so we as an industry have a very limited local demand. But what is also important is that the demand that we do have is essential. It's indispensable because our products, our understanding of operations that's given to us by the South African National Defence Force are all incubated by this local demand. And then we transform that, we repackage that, and then we're able to sell that on into the international market. And so the two is actually working very close hand in hand. We have been able to do transformation within the NEL, and we are pushing that agenda, and we cannot ask for, be apologetic about it. It's a national imperative. And so when we are tough in terms of preferential procurement, when we are tough in asking companies to transform, etc., it's because we do believe in a national policy framework, and that is the right thing for us to do. And so more than 60% of the NEL today are black people. We are buying more than 30% of our procurement from black companies. And that is something that we will build on and make sure that it is a value within the organization. And I'm inviting everybody to take it on as a value, not as an obligation. We need every person in South Africa to assist us to grow. We cannot rely on a subset of the population for our future. And so I'm iterating the point. It's part of our policy objectives. It's a key success factor for us as a company. And I think that's where everything starts. You have to drive by investing in growth. You have to have a policy objective of ensuring that you transform. So that is the foundation of it. Let me go on to the second principle. The second principle has to do with that there's a new environment for us in which to operate. If you look at the chart on the screen there, you'll see in blue the fundamental cyber technologies that has been well established, they're operating today. The green are what we call fourth industrial revolution accelerators. Those are the application technologies that drive the utilization of cyber. And the result is this future scenarios that's on orange, that is just a plethora of new scenarios that's developing. And that changes everything that we know about our industry. It must be quite clear that situational awareness today has become the most important element in any defense of a country. You need to know everything. You must be able to anticipate. You must be able to predict. And for that to take place, there must be more integration, more connectivity, more data, more analytics in order to have the information so that you can have a proper and efficient command and control system. And with this, there's a whole explosion of the cyber technology environment, cyber vulnerabilities, etc. I'm not going to reiterate this. I think that there was a number of presentations that covered it off. Safe to say for us is that we do not change and we do not embrace this environment. We will find ourselves with archaic products and we won't be able to export. Go on to the next slide. Those are a number of technologies that are maturing, the growth of that technology. So you can see things like, for instance, unmanned systems. The growth is already actually coming down. That means it's already peaked in the next 5 years. Things like, for instance, autonomous systems, the blue, that will peak within the next 11 to 20 years. And so the question that we need to ask ourselves is, what impact will that have on our product portfolio? How do we respond in terms of this product portfolio given the background of these technologies? The second thing that we need to do is to say, where's our R&D funding going to? Now clearly, cyber technology, missile systems, unmanned vehicles, those are very well funded and a focus area for the NEL, and it's ongoing. And in terms of the rest of the areas, these are areas that's not going to grow. In actual fact, they're going to decline in terms of R&D. What we do is we're upsmarting them by adding a layer, a smart layer, a robust, secure layer, so that there's communication, and not always military, but also utilizing the commercial infrastructure to communicate with one another. And so our whole R&D environment is repositioned. And the reason why we do that is because we need to be able to grow. If we do not do this, our products, in terms of exports, will start stifling and become less and less viable for the export market. And so there's a shift in R&D investment towards the disruptive technologies and the deployment of upsmarting potential for our products. And we are investing along with Armscor, along with our most specifically our export partners, more than 600 to 800 million rands R&D every year in order to keep this product portfolio and the technology base current. But the point of this all is that we need to innovate or risk the superiority. And in order for us to be able to succeed with that, we need a resource pool of young engineers that are cyber savvy. And so my first outcome of the second principle is then that we need to, as a nation, decide to invest in a pool of young, bright engineers that can handle this cyber technology for us. And so not only is the cyber technology environment providing us with a growth opportunity, it also gives a unique opportunity for us to transform, to have young guys coming into the industry and bring in this technology base that is going to be essential for us to survive in the future. Now, I like this quote from Mike Tyson that spoke about strategy, if you can believe it. He said, you know, everybody got a great plan until you get punched in the face. Okay? And you know, we need to also understand that. Of course you need artillery. Of course you need smart weapons. Of course you need air cover. That will not ever change. But the smartness of applying that will change because of this disruptive technologies. And we need to invest as a nation and take engineers that's coming out of varsity and take them through that first 2 years and give them exposure to cyber, give them exposure to this fourth industrial revolution, and allow them to become the champions for the products going forward. And that is a great opportunity, and if we don't make use of it, we'll be doing ourselves a great disservice. Let me go on to the third principle. The fact of the matter is that, like in any industry, when it goes well, you can do what you want to because it's going well. But when things get tough and money gets scarce, then the first phase is that everybody starts fighting over the small crumb that's still left on the table. And it is destructive. It's most probably unavoidable. It's also perhaps a good thing in some way because it shakes out the industry. But the fact of the matter is you can't stay at that destructive level. You have to decide to align, to collaborate, to have a joint vision, to work together. In a time when there is need and when the demand is low, that is how you should rationally approach the problem. And so there is no doubt that if we work together, that areas of collective improvement potential exist in terms of security, developmental programs, return on investment, exports, economic benefication, and the list go on. The question is, have we tried to identify? Have we tried to articulate what we need to do in terms of alignment to secure that for ourselves? And here's a question that we need to answer ourselves and have an agenda for us as an industry to work together, not only to grow, but also to be able to transform in a better way. So let me structure that argument on the next framework. Framework got 3 pillars. The first pillar is the supply chain. The second pillar is how we will execute the work. And the last pillar is our view of the market. Now, in terms of the supply chain, we cannot, and I'll have a slide on each one of them just to elaborate a bit. So let me move to the first pillar. And that is, what are we wanting to do in terms of our supply chain? The first thing for us to realize is that we can't compete in every place. It's impossible for us to have the best in class in the world in every domain. And so it is important that certain things we buy internationally, certain things we decide is strategic and we'll do it here even though it's not the best in terms of economic sustainability, and the other things is because we can compete. And unfortunately, South Africa cannot compete on every level. We have to choose our war. You cannot just head on fight the opposition. You've got to be smart, you've got to be nimble, you've got to know where your strengths are. And so for us, it's important to understand that, do we have the capability locally, and do we have the volume of work that we can get from the export market that can sustain it? Because you can be very good, but if you don't have work, it doesn't mean anything. You must be able to apply it. And so there must be an agenda to identify what is this top end here that we can sustain with enough volume that makes sense and where we can win in the market. and not before we have identified those things as an industry and decided how we're going to tackle it and how we're going to make sure that the opportunities in the export market speaks to these things. Are we not aligned? We're not strategically nimble, we're not strategically clever or smart. So that's the first pillar of that last principle. The next one is that you need to execute. And everybody can't have all the engineers that you need 5% of the time. Also, systems of systems means that there's bigger integration, systems becoming bigger, it's done over more companies, etc. And there need to be seamless integration between all of these players. And the question that we need to ask ourselves, is our program management system, our system engineering process, our product lifecycle management software, our digital platforms, are they aligned? Are they integratable? Can we partner and collaborate with the tools that we have today? And the answer to that is that there's a lot of work being done in that direction, but we're not near that position. And the CSIR is doing great work in terms of PLM and getting these standards within our industry. But we need to adopt it. We need to embrace it in order for us to be able to collectively collaborate on designs. To tell you just an example, the Nel Aerostructures got a number of fiber optic links into 7 design centers in Europe. And we can work on the same CAD model as our partners in Europe. It's a total transparent system in real time. And so collaboration can take from South Africa to Europe, but we struggle to have that same form of collaboration within our industry. And it's something that we need to change. And let me also say, in some areas, pockets of excellence exist, and they are great cooperation. But we need to string it over the whole of industry. The second thing, in terms of the same thing, is a slide that's not actually showing exactly what I want, but let me go through that. The 2 axes that you see there is as follows. You've got an axis of low level of experience, high level of experience. And here, we're talking about low level of task definition versus high level of task definition. Now, if you are not experienced and the task is not well defined, it's very difficult to get into the game, because you don't have the experience to overcome the process that does not exist. If, however, you've got a great level of process, well definition of the process, even if you have low levels of experience, you're able to work at the task level. And so what happened in the current environment is that we have a lot of our people sitting in this quadrant here, very experienced, but the process itself is perhaps not as highly defined. And that's why prototyping is so fast in South Africa. And that's why perhaps we struggle with qualification of it, because everything was not dotted and crossed as we went along. But we don't want to lose that capability because it's one of our winning areas. But you can see how that can create disillusionment in terms of a barrier to entry to the young engineers trying to enter that environment. And so PLM, and this is the third dimension trying to go out in that direction. Program, lifecycle management software, CAD, CAM, system engineering processes. Those need a lift so that the definition of what we do starts lifting up a bit. And that will allow a lot of more youngsters to enter into the industry and be productive from day one. And then some of them can go back down into this prototyping skunkworks environment, and others can go into a systems learning environment. But capability in our industry based on qualification, experience, and opportunity. Now, the qualification is not the issue. We get a lot of young engineers with great qualifications, much better than I've done when I was at varsity. But are they given the opportunity? Now, because there's no RIFOL, because there's no G6, the opportunities are really shrinking. And if I don't have experience, it even creates a barrier to enter the little bit that there is. And so clearly that needs to be taken away. And so in terms of transformation and in terms of growth, this execution alignment are both very important for us as an industry. We move on to the next slide, and that is the final principle. We must have a goal as an industry. I believe that goal must be specific export opportunities. And the export opportunities that we're talking about must be such that we can win in that area. Now, it means that Everything from the SANDF through Arms Corps, through industry, needs to have a golden thread. And as you see there, that what I'm proposing is that the local demand requirement and product systems recapitalization by the DoD needs to be aligned with industry. So that industry can say, if we're going to make this product, if we can add this and add that, then the export potential doubles. And once the export potential is in place, what is sustaining the technology? What's sustaining the facilities in this industry? It's the exports. And so it is important, even for the local demand, to consider the fact that exports supports the industry for the local customer. We are totally interdependent. And so this alignment must then grow. The next point is that we need to focus on R&D. Where is the R&D funds coming from? How can we make sure that all these R&D funds are aligned to a specific export or export opportunities? How can Denel and the CSIR collaborate further? And we have started that journey. We started with a clean and a clear intent to see how we can leverage every cent going into R&D in order to get an eventual export opportunity. Now that cannot change overnight. It is something, it's a journey of discovery, a journey of collaboration, a journey of business model development, etc. But no doubt, we need to go through that process. And if we as an industry grow and we can double our exports, just imagine the jobs, the skills, the transformation, and the other social political elements, economic elements that we can develop in South Africa. And the leadership and the values will come from us as an industry. We must buy in and make it happen. It's like any other challenge, just a challenge. If you focus and you plan and you execute properly, it happens. And it will help everybody in the nation. Ending up with a value chain that are well aligned, well consolidated, clear in terms of everything from demand through R&D, through industrialization design to the export market. That, I believe, will be a key for the industry to survive and to grow. And so the three principles, Chair, if I may just summarize it again. The first one, very clearly, you have to have discipline. You have to put transformation and growth in your policy objectives and drive it. The second thing is, there's a whole cyber environment. There's a whole net-centric warfare environment. There's a whole new level of technology through the fourth industrial revolution that's becoming available. It's a great opportunity to bring in a young engineer resource pool to drive that action. And thirdly, let's align strategically in order to maximize the benefit that we can get from exports. If we do those three things, I am sure that both transformation and growth in the defense industry will have another day in the sun. I thank you.